Will this 10-bolt survive in my LS Swap street truck? Well, we're going to start the journey to find out today. Perfect. So this is the stock 10-bolt rear end out of my 2-wheel drive square body, and it has an open diff, and that's a problem. Let's pop the cover off and we'll take a closer look at what we got. So with an open diff, when you're coming hard out of a corner at autocross and your inside tire starts to lose traction, all the power is going to go to that inside tire and it's just going to sit there and spin. So here you can see the body roll of the truck unloads the inside tire and it breaks free. And this really limits the acceleration you can have out of a corner. So a Posi is going to allow us to keep both of our tires planted as we're powering out of a corner, which overall should give us a better time around the track. So before I can order the new parts, I'm going to double check the spline count on my axles. Pretty sure it's 28, but we'll pop it apart and double check. We are 28 spline. Off camera, I tore the housing all the way down, and there's some major damage in here. All these spider gears have stress fractures and this pitting going on. Both of the carrier bearings are extremely worn and are just totally junk. And the center pin even has some major frictional wear. Like, that is really, really bad. And everywhere inside this housing is just metal shavings. So this thing needs a good deep clean. So the carrier had about a 1/4 inch of walk from side to side, which is kind of insane. I don't know how this rear end didn't blow up when we were at autocross. So I have all the new goodies to put the rear end back together, but first we gotta clean it out so that this thing lasts a long time. And I'm going to make a 3D model of it for a future project. It's gonna be fun. CAD model's done. It's by no means a super accurate, precise model, but it gives me all the geometry that I'm gonna need for this future project. Let me know in the comments what you think it is. It's probably pretty obvious, but I still wanna see if anybody can guess it exactly. The housing's all cleaned up and painted, so now we're gonna start putting everything in. The first thing we have to do is install the pinion. Getting the pinion depth right is kind of tricky. So I'm gonna see if I can figure out what shims are in the old pinion and try to transfer those to the new one. See if we can get close without having to do this 10 times. And holy crap, look at the difference between a 273 and a 373. Okay, so I tried the, put the pinion in the freezer and the bearings in the oven and tried to use thermal expansion to get the bearings on. Didn't quite work out for me, so I phoned in a friend who had a shop with the proper tools and we got these done. So we pulled the old bearing, took the shim, and threw it on the new pinion, and we're just gonna hope that it's right, and guys say 9 times out of 10 it is, so let's hope that we're one of those 9. Okay, so we have the gear in there, so now we're gonna check the backlash. I have one of these dial indicators. We have 1 thou. Yeah, about 1 thou of backlash. 1 thou is definitely not enough backlash, so we're gonna pull it out, reshim it, and try again. So to increase our backlash, we need the gear to move this way. So we're gonna take a shim out of this side and move it over to this side, and then we'll see where we end up. All right, now we have about 7 thou of backlash, and that's right where we wanna be. Now comes the fun part of reading the mesh. And this is where we keep our fingers crossed and hope that the pinion depth is right, because I really do not want to have to mess with it. We're just gonna put this on like 3 or 4 teeth, paint it on there like paint, I guess. Wanna make sure you get both sides, because we're gonna be reading the, I believe it's called the power in the coast side. I don't know, don't quote me on that. So we got the meshing compound on there. That might be a little heavy, but that's okay. So basically what this is gonna do is it's gonna show where the gears are rubbing against each other, and that'll let us know if we're in the right spot or not. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here is I'm going to put some pressure on the carrier so that the gears mesh, and I'm gonna spin it through forward. Also through backward.
Well, what did you figure out?
I think I nailed it. I'll show you quick what the mesh looks like. So this is the coast side, and that is perfect right in the center of the tooth. The drive side is a little bit toward the center, which means it's a little deep. But from what I've heard, if you try to shim that out, it's just gonna throw it off worse in the other direction. So I'm gonna leave it and hope it wears in nice. So now I gotta set up the proper pinion preload, and to do that, we gotta take everything back out again. So for the final install of the pinion, normally you use a crush sleeve, but I've heard the horror stories of how these things suck, and they're not super great for high performance, so we have a crush sleeve eliminator kit, which is basically a solid washer with a bunch of shim washers. So we're gonna start in the middle of the shim range and tighten her up and see where she's at. So it took a few tries to get the preload right. I ended up with 22 inch-pounds of drag, and they recommend 25 for new bearings. It's close enough. I'm gonna run it and we'll see what happens. So the last thing that I have to do is put in the axle bearings. I've been fighting with these for a few days, so I made my own little press. So this guy takes and bolts on right where the brakes would bolt on, and then I have a puck. That's gonna be the push block, and this is aluminum, so we shouldn't mess up the bearing or the housing. The bearings have been in the freezer for about a week, so I'm gonna go grab those and hopefully this goes smooth. That's how cold these are, they're frosting up. This worked really well for getting the bearings set, but with this setup, it didn't have enough oomph to really push them all the way in. So I ended up just using the spacer and a hammer to tap them in all the way. That worked really well. It also works great for setting up the seals. So I've got the rear end fully assembled, except for the axles. So you'll have to keep an eye out for part 2 when we put the brakes on this bad boy. All the parts that went into this rear end I got from JEGS. If you'd like to get any of these parts yourselves, you can hit the link in the description. But that's all for now. Thanks for watching. If you like what you see, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe. And as always, let's LS swap the world.